Dr. Sanchez, I thought that your presentation on the role of race, ethnicity, and culture in youth mentoring was just phenomenal. And it really gave me an opportunity to think about a lot of things. And I had a lot of questions. And so can I just start asking some questions?
Of course.
Okay. One of the first things that I want to make sure that I'm able to take back is you mentioned 31 movies that related to race and culture that you use in your class. Are those movies available? Do you have a listing of them that might be useful?
Yeah, the list of movies that we came up with was for mentors to use to have a discussion with their youth that they're matched up with about prejudice and discrimination. So one of the things that we've done in our Girl Power project is in one of the workshops we talk about issues of racism and discrimination, and one of the suggested activities is to go watch a movie about that. And we have a list of 31 movies that we came up with that are rated PG or PG-13, where racism takes place in those movies. And so we don't necessarily have them online, but if anyone is interested in getting this list of movies, they can definitely contact me, and I could send this list. And that way it'd be a great, activity that a mentor and a young person can do together, and then maybe have a conversation about that.
That sounds phenomenal. I'll look for that list.
Okay. Yeah, and a couple of the movies on there that I can think of, I haven't looked at the list in a while, but one of them is Remember the Titans. I think another one is Bring It On. Another one is Rabbit Proof Fence. So there's a variety of movies, and some of them involve young people, some of them are about adults.
Great. Now, when we talk about cultural sensitivity and trying to ensure that our mentors are ready for a culturally diverse population of students, what do you suggest as a best method for, first of all, identifying where they might be on a scale of sensitive or not, and secondarily, what role training can play to move them along that scale?
Okay, those are great questions. We have one measure that we've used in our research to study the mentors' cultural sensitivity, and one of them is a ethno-cultural empathy scale, and it's looking at the mentor's empathy towards people of a different race or ethnicity. So maybe that could be used as a tool to figure out where the mentor is in terms of how comfortable they are with people of different races or ethnicities. And then we also have a tool that we've used where the youth assesses the cultural sensitivity of the mentor. So that's something that would be used later in the program. And then in terms of the training itself, I know that I think it's Mentor has put together a culturally smart tool about that could be used with mentors. And I think some of the issues that I don't think that necessarily in one session people will become all of a sudden culturally competent. So some of the principles that I've seen people use in the counseling literature that's applicable to mentoring is that the first one is to know thyself. So know your own culture and explore your own cultural history, and also explore what your biases might be. The second one is to learn about the other person's culture. So even if you're matched up with someone with of a particular culture that you think you're familiar with, you don't always want to assume that you're going to know everything about that person just because they belong to a particular group. So it's always important to ask questions and really get to know that person and who that person is, rather than making assumptions. And then the third one is to use that knowledge about what you've learned, about that person's culture, and applying it to how you help, that person.
Mm-hmm. This is another question. A lot of your research, most of your research is done on the Latino population. And for the novice, the culturally incompetent I understand that that encompasses a lot of different ethnic groups. From your take, how important is it for those people who are working with Latino youth to understand the particulars of their ethnic background?
Oh, it's very important, and I would say that that's important for any group that you're working with. So there's a lot of diversity in Latino culture. So in the U.S., a whole bunch of different ethnic groups are grouped up into one, and within the Latino community, there's so much diversity. And if you're getting to know a Puerto Rican youth and their family, may be very different from a Mexican youth and his or her family. So there are definitely cultural differences. So I think it's important to get to know, understand what is that person's ethnic background, but also even the generational status. Are they people, or did the youth just come here, immigrate here recently, or was the child born here, and the parents are immigrants? Or maybe they, like in the Southwest, there's a lot of people who've been here for many generations, and they're many generations removed, from Mexico, for example. So generational status is another issue to look at, and then maybe even language as well, and the language that the family speaks. What's the dominant language? Does the child use both English and Spanish, or is more comfortable in one language versus the other? So there's so much diversity within Latino culture.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. So based on what you learned in the presentations that I gave on race, ethnicity, culture, and mentoring, or the one on natural mentoring, are there any takeaways that you have about how you can apply it to your mentoring programs?
Yeah, definitely. One of the key things that was talked about was this whole notion of how comfortable a student might be in a cross-gender or cross-racial or cross-cultural match. And so to embed those things in our intake process, we will do on both sides, the mentor and the mentee part, because that's probably one of the weaker areas of our program. We tend to have about 80% of my volunteers, well, 65 to 80% of my volunteers are white. And the reverse is true for the mentors. So we know that we're going to have to do cross-cultural matches, but some people are more comfortable on one side or another. And so just knowing that information up front, I think, will be valuable. The other piece is being able to incorporate some of the movies as activities or suggested activities for matches to make. There were just tons of things that were take-homes, right away take-homes, that are simple things to do, changing some forms and some intake processes, and incorporating those into what we do.
Well, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.